So I've noticed recently that if you look at concerts on YouTube, you ever notice when you're looking at either a concert or a event on YouTube that everybody has their cell phone out in front of them, right? They're trying to capture the experience of being there, right? Oh, I want to capture this experience of being there. And then when they go home and they look at the recording, the video of the event, somehow must have not had a good view. You know, it doesn't seem to be as exciting as they thought it would be, right? Because they believe you can capture an experience, which isn't true. You can't capture an experience. So it's interesting that this phenomena happens for people, you know, that they're interested in capturing the experience on the cell phone. Now, it's interesting because this is actually, the reason that that's the case is because it's a projection of their relationship with their mind. Why? Because the mind is recording what's happening and playing it back to you, isn't it? So it's exactly the same thing, right? And so therefore you would confuse what the mind's playing back to you with the experience instead of the experience. But if you've never been available for the experience since you were a baby, right? If you had never been available, you wouldn't know the difference, right? You would think what the mind's showing you is what happened, right? When it's never what happened. What the mind's doing is it's recording what happened, and it's even worse than the cell phone because it's recording what's happening and filtering it through your conditioning. So it shows you what your conditioning, what the interpretation of what happened through your conditioning is. And you don't know that that's the case, right? Right? So everything that you think you're seeing, right, you're seeing a recording of, which has added to it all these other aspects that come from your conditioning. You know, it's added to it like there's what happened, right? There's what happened, and then the mind records what happened and runs it through the filter of your conditioning. So then when it gets to you, there's what happened, and there's whether I liked it or not, whether it was good or bad, how it felt at the time, whether it should have happened or not, right? That's all the way you're seeing it. And when you see it that way, you think it really is true. You really think your opinion is a fact, don't you? Don't people believe their opinion is a fact? That's why we have war, because they believe their opinion is a fact, right? So the only way out of that is to realize if you want to experience, if you're at a concert or you're at an event, you want to experience the event, you have to be there. You can't have it, you can't experience it through your phone. Your phone's not alive. It can't record experience. It can only record pixels. It can only record pictures and sound. But they're recordings. They're not real. They're not live. So this is the same thing in living your everyday life. If you were actually living your everyday life in presence, if you were actually living your everyday life and you were actually there for your life, it would be exciting. It would, no matter what would be happening, it would be exciting because it would be real, it would be alive, it would be vibrant, it would have an inherent value because of the fact that it's life. You're actually experiencing your life. And if you actually experience your life, not through an interpretation process, not through the conditioning, not through the mind, not through a recording, if you're actually experiencing your life, then when the end of your life comes, you experience satisfaction because you were actually there for your life. You don't have any regrets. You didn't miss it. You were there. But if you're a typical human being, when you get to the end of your life, the common experience that people have when they reflect back on their life, right, is that somehow it doesn't seem real. You know, they say when somebody's dying, they have a flashback of their entire life and so forth, right? So they're just looking at the recording. That's all. But they weren't there, right? So that's what's at stake. That's what's at stake. That's why meditation is important, because meditation is a practice that you can practice that will, through the practicing of meditation, will keep reducing the influence and the effect of your mind. And will keep making it more and more clear to you when you're absent from what's actually happening, right? So you don't even need this. See, the thing is, when you use the cell phone to try and capture the experience, right? Now you're doubling the recording, because the cell phone is recording what's happening, and then your mind is recording what the cell phone recorded. So you're doubling the recording. It's twice removed from reality, right? But people don't know that. People think and people are so lost in their beliefs about things that even if they take videos with their cell phone and go back and look at the videos and say, you look at them one time, you say, yeah, that was interesting, right? And people have these massive collections of videos, just like they used to do with photos, right? Massive collection of videos that they never look at. Why? Because somehow they have this sense that it's not real. It doesn't seem to be like they thought it would be, right? It's not what they thought it would be, because what they thought it would be is the capturing of an experience, which is impossible through your mind or through the cell phone, right? So this is to point to the significance of practicing something that will begin to open you up to the difference between having a relationship with your mind and having a relationship with reality. When you're having a relationship with reality, there is no effect. When you're having a relationship with reality, you're being the awareness of what's happening, and the awareness of what's happening is never affected by what's happening. And it's complete. When you're being the awareness of what's happening, you experience the experience and it disappears. Right? What gets collected in the memory, and sometimes what gets collected in the memory is traumatic, right? And when it comes back and replays, it's a trauma replaying, which means it puts you into a panic attack, or puts you into a depressed state, or puts you into an agitated state, like people who were in Vietnam when they got traumatized and came home and something triggered the trauma. It could put them into such a depersonalized, traumatized, aggravated, angry survival condition that they could kill somebody. That's happened. That's actually happened. They could kill some innocent person that was there when they went into a traumatic state, okay? What's a trauma? It's an incomplete experience, right? That's why in psychotherapeutic work, what they do is try and they call it a catharsis, right? Or a re-experiencing of the experience. Why? To get it completed. Any experience that you're there for gets completed and then it disappears, it's gone, right? But any experience that you're not there for, that's getting interpreted by your mind, right? What gets added to it is the filter of your conditioning, right? So of what's being seen, that's being recorded by your mind, is being compared to all the other past experiences you had, and it reminds you of something that was an upset, right? Then that gets recorded in your mind as an upset. So it's not an experience anymore, it's a recording of an experience that has an upset added to it, has fear added to it, has anger added to it, right? Has resistance added to it, right? Because the mind is a survival operation, right? So it's not just seeing what's happening, it's always seeing it's not seeing anything. It's recording what's happening in terms of whether it's a threat to your survival or not. And the way the mind is successful in having you survive is to consider everything a threat. Therefore, everything that's happening that gets recorded by your mind, right? When it gets through the conditioning to you, brings with it some sense of either not being complete, not being satisfying, not being enjoyable. There's some kind of tension there. There's some kind of, because of the fact that the mind's interpreting everything as a threat, the way we relate to life is we're recoiling all the time. We're not aware of it, right? But we're recoiling all the time. When you wake up in the morning, if you wake up in a state of mind, right? Your mind is already in resistance to what's going to happen today. It's already playing, even though it didn't happen yet, it's already playing to you, let's see, what's going to happen today? Is it going to be a good day or a bad day? Do I like this day or do I not like this day? Are the things going to happen that I don't want to happen? Well, if I'm going to go to work, that's something I don't want to happen. I do that 9 hours a day. You see what I'm saying? No wonder after a while you're depressed, right? Because you're spending most of your life doing something that you hate, right? Being at work, right? That's why it's happening. The baseline operation of the mind, more than anything else, right? It has two functions. One is to survive, right? And the other one is to keep generating that there's something to exist to survive. They're the two functions, more than anything else, right? So it needs to use what's not real in order to keep what's not real in existence. How do I know that I am my personality? I can remember myself. I can show you pictures of me from the past. How do I know my personalities? I can imagine me doing something tomorrow. The only place the personality can't exist is in the present moment. Right? That's why it is a challenge to practice meditation, because in meditation we're practicing being in the present moment, and in the present moment there is no personality. That's why when you're practicing meditation you can only get a brief glance at it, and then a thought comes, right? Because according to the programming of the mind, if you're present, the personality is being threatened. If you're present, the personality can't be present because it doesn't exist. It can't experience anything because it doesn't exist, right? So when you're present and the personality's not there, the mechanism called your mind thinks that there's a threat to your existence. It's got to pull you back. It's got to get your attention back. Right? And if you get good at being present, then the mind will start to produce more significant ways of getting your attention. This is very important. It's a very subtle thing. If you get good at meditation, if you get good at being present, right, your mind will start bringing up more significant ways of getting your attention. Like what? What gets your attention that you can't help giving it to?
Fear.
Fear, being upset, right? You ever notice that when you're upset, it's very hard to get your attention away from the upsetting material? Whether it's anger or fear, right? What else gets your attention that you can't keep it away from? Pain, yeah. Pain and fear, right? So that will guarantee that your personality stays in existence. If the mind is producing pain or fear or anger, right? That will guarantee that your personality stays in existence, because it's very hard not to pay attention when there's pain. It's very hard not to pay attention when there is emotional upset, right? So if you're doing these practices and you understand meditation, right, you're practicing meditation in a relatively calm situation, right? But then if you're practicing it in a relatively calm situation and you start to get some identity as an awareness instead of a personality, right? Then the fact that you have some identity as an awareness instead of a personality can be applied and put to use in your life when there's an emotional upset. Huh? So that when something happens in relationship to your partner, this is why being married is valuable, because it allows you to have somebody around you to insult you. And if you practice at meditation and you're practicing the way it's meant to be done, right? When that person around you insults you, you can experience not being affected. You can experience not getting upset, which may upset them. They may interpret your not getting upset as a challenge, right? To try and provoke you to come up with more, better material, right? So that's the application of meditation. If you practice meditation consistently, you will start to develop an experience of your true identity, a little bit at a time. And the more of that identity that comes into existence, the less possible is it for you to be upset. Anything that you resist, this is the way to see your mind. Anything that you resist or you reject or you struggle with or you react to means that you're seeing what's happening through a mental condition, through a mental process, right? And anything that exists, that happens, that you see through a mental condition, right? That has that effect on you, right? That you resist or you struggle with or you argue with or you fight with, so you give it the power to disturb you. Anything that you resist, anything that you think should be different than it is, you give that the power to disturb you. Now, if you look at that, right, how many things do you think should be different than they are? A lot, right? So how often are you disturbed? A lot, right? That's called mental illness, all right? It's a condition called neurosis. In the mild form, it's just neurotic. You're neurotic, right? What's neurotic mean? You're disturbed a lot of the time. That's neurosis, right? You're neurotic. You're disturbed. That's the mild form of it, right? The deeper form of it, the more aggressive form of it, the more dysfunctional form of it goes from neurosis to depression, to anxiety, to panic attacks, right? To uncontrolled anger, to being dysregulated. What's the word dysregulation mean in psychology?
Unable to control your emotions?
Yeah, your emotions are controlling you. When you get angry, you can't control your mouth or your behavior. That's dysregulation. When you get depressed, you can't control the fact that you will isolate, right? That you will pull away from the threat, right? And you'll continually pull away from the threat. And as you pull away from the threat, which is life, right? You experience more and more deadness. That's called depression. More and more deadness. I don't feel alive. I don't have any hope for the future. I don't feel like anything matters anymore. Nothing interests me anymore. Nothing's exciting anymore. Yeah, that's because you're not there for it. You're not there for anything anymore. A life being lived in your mind is not a very exciting life. A life being lived in your mind is not a very healthy life. It's not a very responsive life. It's a very dead experience to only live in your mind. It's like looking at a picture instead of being there. It's like watching a video of a concert instead of being there. You pay all that money for those tickets, right? In order to have your phone record the concert. You're a one-trick pony until you wake up. Until you wake up, you and your mind are the same thing. There's no difference. That's why our Zen teacher says the quality of your life, and what he means by the quality of your life is whether you're experiencing any excitement, happiness, satisfaction, peace, or well-being. That's the quality of your life. The quality of your life is a function of your relationship with your mind, right? But the problem is most people don't even have a relationship with their mind. They're being their mind. So the first thing you have to do in order to have a relationship with your mind is to know you're not your mind. What's that mean? It means that you know the voice in your head isn't you. That's the first step. You have to know that the voice in your head isn't you. Once you know the voice in your head isn't you, you've already taken a giant step in the direction of freedom. Once you know the voice in your head isn't you, you've taken a giant step in the direction of freedom. Because instead of blaming yourself for being such an asshole, you can now blame it on your mind. And that's true. It is your mind. It's not you. It is your mind. It's not you. It's a lot easier to make changes in your personality when you know you're not your personality. If you think you're your personality and you go to psychotherapy, it's going to take a long time, right? And the therapist is going to have to go very slowly with you, right? Because the personality is going to resist any information that comes in its direction that makes it look bad or wrong. It's going to resist any information that comes in that direction. So if you're in psychotherapy, the therapist has to be very careful about the feedback. They have to be very slow and careful about how much information they give you about what the real cause of your suffering is, which is you, right? That's why, there are a lot of people that come to me for psychotherapy. It doesn't last long because I cut to the chase, right? And then they don't come back.